Hello, this is David Cherry. I'm here to give you a quick tip on Apache redirection and having problems with mode rewrite. And this is something that just recently happened to me, and the reason I'm working on this issue that I'm trying to do is redirecting URLs from spiders and bots that I don't want access in my website, because they do and can rack havoc on you. In fact, the havoc to me has become so acute that I had to disable my database because they were deleting database files. And so I finally traced it down and figured out what was going on. So I created basically a sync page to where they will go to a certain page, and in my database, there are certain IPs that I put in there manually to block. And so if they come back, they'll go to a sync page, and I can monitor in an HTML, not HTML file, but basically a special index file where it tells me that they have been that my IP blocking is working that way. Okay, but the primary purpose right now is to determine whether or not your mode rewrite is working within your htaccess file. And basically what the htaccess file gives you control on what is accessed and what is not accessed on your web server. Okay, so anyway, up here I use XAMPP, and I'm going to show you right here, all right, the version right here. Okay, I'm working on port 80, and then this is for my SQL database 443, where your database stuff goes to. Okay, and so if you want to know what version of Apache you're working on, okay, let me just start all over. If you want to know what version of Apache you're working on, just hit this config button right here. Okay, and then what you want to do is go to this button here called service port and settings. All right, and so when you go to service port and settings, you can see here you got your port and stuff there, but this tells you that the version of Apache I'm currently using is 2.4. I honestly don't know if there's a later one, but anyway, you'll need to be aware of that, okay, that you're using Apache 2.4. Now I want you to see what I'm doing here. I'm going to copy Apache 2.4 here. Now this is for really important for monitoring your Apache service and what version you're using, because you could have multiple versions of XAMPP on there, and that's a big issue as well. Okay, so anyway, I know that I'm using Apache version 2.4. Okay, and so I'm going to close these out right here because I really don't need them right now. All right, now this here is the file that I'm telling you about. Okay, this is the htaccess file. Okay, it's not for anything but testing that I have mode rewrite working on my server. And what happened was, some reason, a couple times recently within the past week, it quit working. And I'll show you the quick fix to figure it out. Okay, and this is the beginning of the quick fix. Okay, and then what I'm going to do on here, all right, these are commented out lines, how to test if mode rewrite is working on your Apache server. And then what I'm going to put up here is this right here for the future when I save this file again, Apache 2.4 version. And the reason you want to do that is there are different versions of Apache, and depending on the versions of Apache you're using, okay, that's just a good reminder that you're using Apache 2.4. So when you're searching the web and documents like that, you'll know, to kind of try to figure out what version you're using for, especially when it comes to directory operations and how they work. Okay, but that's not necessary. Okay, now here is the most important code you'll need to have in the htaccess file. Okay, that is the most important information you need to have. Okay, now if it's working, okay, and I'm going to explain what this code is. Okay, this here, you have to have the RewriteEngine on for redirection. Okay, so let's say that you have a web page that you want to redirect, okay, and to another place. My purpose is to redirect all web pages accessing something that they're not supposed to, all right, and redirect them to one single page. But this here will tell you how to determine if it's working. So you have mode RewriteEngine on, and you just turn this in here. Okay, now you want to make sure three things are done in order to make sure that everything's right. Wherever your htaccess file is, okay, so you have, you know, your .htaccess file, which, you know, that's the name of the file on your web server. All right, you need to make sure that is, all right, and then also the file for user pass. Okay, so the file for user pass in this case will be, I'm trying to find it. It's not here. Okay, but you need to make sure it's in the same place. Okay, we'll go to the forbidden site. Okay, and that's on your deal. So it's called the ht password file. Okay, so anyway, I'm just going to put the copy of that because I want that in there too, so for a reminder. All right, so you want to make sure that's in the same place too. Okay, so the forbidden is a default deal in your web server. So you're actually looking at the document root of my web server right here. Okay, and so anyway, you want to make sure that you have your htaccess file and your ht password in the same directory. All right, when you're doing the testing, because you know you're doing it with testing, and I don't have the information here, but because the most important code is right here, and it's simply, you're not testing for password use, you're testing for redirection use. Okay, so that's the most important code that you'll need there. And to show you how that it works is what I'm fixing to do. Okay, and how it works. Okay, now I think I probably ought to do this just to make it more viewable in terms of there you go, for those of you who are viewing it on video. Okay, so the most important code, as you can see, is right here. All right, and you need to make sure you have the htaccess and password in the same file. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to just add this here, you know, just so people know. Make sure the files .htaccess and .htaccess password are in the same directory. Even though it's not needed right here, I'm putting it in there because I'm saving it for future use and comments. All right, so that's the code right here you're going to need right here. Okay, now if it's not working, what will happen is you'll get an error occurring in your web server. It won't redirect, it'll just show, you know, an error. You'll have an error page. All right, and so anyway, and then what I need to tell you is to fix the issue. All right, because I need this as a reminder. To fix the issue, the best way is to reinstall your httpd.config. I got a bad hand, so I'm having to look. Okay, so anyway, I got to do my spell correction there, http and then config. All right, and so you should always make a backup of the http config deal. And the fastest way to fix the issue is to make sure, you know, that you always have a backup of your original HTTP config file. Okay, and make sure it's updated every time you redo it to get it where you want it to be. But keep the original HTTP config file as a backup that is on your server. That way, you have to rebuild, redo the whole thing. You have it there. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how it actually works. Okay, now this here is the index file on my server. Okay, and I'm using localhost in this case. All right, And so if it will work, okay, if I take this right here and I leave it like this in the directory of my what you call the address bar here, you see here in the top, okay, that would, to look at it just like that, you would think, okay, it's looking for the localhost folder, okay, all right. And so if you have directory indexing options on your server, you know, and enabled, then what's going to happen is, and it is on my server, okay, then what's going to happen is that it'll actually go to that directory, and when you hit it, if you have directory indexing options allowed, okay, in your httpd config file, then what's going to happen is it'll index everything in your directory. Well, that's not a very good security issue. Okay, but here what it does, okay, is because I have the code I just showed you, which will allow me to know if redirection is working, which I need to in order to redirect URLs from an htaccess file to control the, you know, how directories are accessed and prevent primarily spiders and bots from getting into them and wreaking havoc as I experience. Okay, if it works, it'll take it to the index.html file. Let me show you. See there? It went to that file, but it doesn't show the extension. So you're being redirected to CompuNet.com. And that's what the file says, and I disabled the JavaScript, okay? You know, but actually, you know, I wanted to prevent them from going to certain index files, so it redirects them. All right, so this is working. So basically, here's what I want you to remember. All right, the most important code to determine if your redirection mode rewrite is working on your Apache server is right there. Okay, if it's not working, then what you'll have to do is take a backup, and that's the fastest way to find out, you know, the issue. If it's not working, then you might end up having to reinstall your whole web server, and that's a pain in the you know what. Okay, and the reason is there's so much time is messed up. You know, that's what a good reason to have a backup, you know, for your XAMPP on your computer. You know, so when you have to do that, you can do it. So anyway, this is David Cherry with code on how to test whether or not Mode Rewrite Engine is working on your web server. And then when that works, then you can do redirections with URLs, and that will probably be the next video I'll pop up, you know, because I'm fixing to do it right now anyway in terms of fixing my HTTP config file. And anyway, God bless. Have a good day. This is David Cherry. Give me a thumbs up. All right. If you like this video, and let others know about me, and have a very good day.